When the government came to power, they did so on the promises of, well, lots of promises, one of the major ones of which was sort of lower bills. And they really needed to re-champion the climate agenda, which of course all parties have been part of since the Climate Change Act was passed in 2008. And so their initiative really, partly to get over some of the baggage that had been associated with net zero. They felt that was sort of holding things back a bit. And of course, Ed Miliband loves a bit of urgency because it's sort of something that he can turn into social media videos and saying, "Look how much we're progressing." 2050 is still seemingly quite a long way away. So they came up with Clean Power 2030, which also may have been a bit of a sop for some of the greener elements in the Labour Party fold. So, for example, one of their recent party conferences, there was a sort of a motion to have net zero by 2035, I think, or 2030. And that caused quite a lot of friction within the party. So clean power by 2030 is sort of a compromise between the sort of radical net zero strain and some of the more cautious voices that have emerged, some of them from the unions, some of them from membership. This is going a bit fast. We're a bit worried about how this is going to affect jobs and so on in the economy. And rightly so. Those concerns have been quite well founded. So that, of course, gives them 5 years from their election to 2030 to deliver this budget. And that would imply a rate of expansion of renewable energy, an expansion of wind farms and solar farms and things like that, multiples of what we've already seen over the last 20 years. So it implies something like a rate of progress 10 times or more higher. We've got to have a tripling of offshore wind that has been built over the last 15 years. And a doubling of onshore wind and a tripling of solar. So the way the government commissions these renewable energy plants, these new renewable energy projects, is by holding an auction for contracts every year or so. These are called auction rounds, and it's essentially a bidding for contracts to deliver subsidized power. And so every auction round, the government publishes what it's expecting the terms of these auctions to be. That is, say, what price they're expecting and how long these contracts will last for. And so these contracts offer wind farms a set price for their electricity they produce for a certain amount of time. And so what the government have said is for renewable technologies like offshore wind, they're going to be paying 12 pence per kilowatt hour for the next 20 years after the commissioning of those projects. Now that's more than twice the price of power from gas. So critics have been pointing out that these auction rounds cannot produce lower bills. They can only, mathematically, they can only increase the cost of electricity for consumers and for industries, and that contradicts the Labour Party's promise to lower bills. So, on some analyses, this is going to add, if the government continues with the Clean Power 2030 agenda, this is going to add £1,000 to the cost of living to each household by that time. That's add, not that's not going to be the cost of power. So we've already seen about £130 increase in electricity prices thanks to the government's first year in office. We've seen price hikes at most of the last quarters. So the energy price cap has gone up. So the government is pushing this agenda and is pushing us into something of a crisis. And this really, I mean, this is obvious to everyone now, except for the government. The energy bosses of energy companies spoke in Parliament recently. I think there's 3 or 4 of them, and they said even if we could have gas for free, and we could produce electricity from that gas for free, bills are still going to go up. because of the contradictions involved in green energy policy, right? In order to balance the grid, you have to take quite extraordinary measures, and renewable energy requires all of these immense subsidies to make it work. So the energy companies against it, even people like Bill Gates are now coming out and saying green energy just isn't the answer to any problem. And now there's the opposition, which is finally admitted after 20 years of supporting the green agenda that there are flaws with it. And now the press are pretty much onto this fact too. And even the Guardian are complaining that the COP23 meeting process is a failure. So it looks like the green agenda in total is a bit of a flop, and it's going to take us to a very bad place if the rising costs of living and the rising costs of energy aren't addressed in short order.
Yeah, well, when you've lost Bill Gates and The Guardian, I'm not sure what that says. But just on this specific issue, Ben, what can people do on this issue of Clean Power 2030?
Well, what would be great is if people could use the Together website to let their MPs know that there is this problem with Agenda 20, Clean Power 2030, that the prices that are going to go up aren't going to be able, people aren't just simply not going to be able to afford to pay their bills, and that includes businesses that employ people. That includes entire industries which have to compete internationally. I mean, it's one thing for the likes of Keir Starmer to say we're going to have, we have future industries like AI data centers and such like. But if the energy is too expensive, those companies or they won't be able to set up here. They might not even be able to the industries that are here may not be able to remain here for very much longer. So it really requires people to tell MPs that this is a major concern to them, because MPs don't often very much think for themselves. They're surrounded by green NGOs who will fill their inboxes with propaganda and analyses which don't reflect reality, saying it's okay. But we have to see that these promises have been around for 20 years. The advocates of the green policy agenda, which is now Clean Power 2030, have been promising green jobs for 20 years, have been promising green growth for 20 years, and have been promising new green industries for 20 years, and a green industrial revolution, they even called it. But none of these things have materialized. So these promises are becoming thinner and thinner and thinner. And MPs really need to know that the people that vote for them or used to vote for them aren't going to vote for them anymore, and they're going to vote for an alternative unless this is addressed pretty quickly. So yeah, use the Together website to let your MP know your thoughts.